Let's now talk about being a dualist. A dualist means you are professionally capable in two domains, and professionally capable means you may excel in one or both, but nevertheless, if you were given a job in either of the two areas, or if you had to do two jobs, you are pretty good at doing both. And that's what being a dualist really means. It's a happy medium between being a specialist and being a super generalist. Now, if you are a dualist, you actually have to put it asks a lot of you, because you have to put a lot more effort in excelling at both areas. So you are undertaking formal learning methods in both the domains. So you might have to get 2 degrees or 2 certificates, or you might start off with one and then do the other, and over time really become a dualist. If you find out that you excel in one thing over the other, or you have the ability to professionally practice one thing over the other, if you can only, even though you're professionally capable of two areas, if you have a job only in a single one of them, then your main one of the two is called a primary profession, and the secondary that you choose is called the second thing that you choose would be called your secondary profession. And therefore, when you choose to be a dualist, you can either choose the two professions to be complementary to each other or completely unrelated. So for example, complementary could be you are a graphics designer and a content writer. So just imagine if you're writing a newspaper article, you're publishing a book or a magazine, you can actually lay out your content if you're a graphics designer and present it in a more compelling manner if you're a writer and a graphics designer. So that's just an example of choosing two professions, one primary and one secondary, that are complementary to each other. Other times, you might choose two professions that are completely unrelated. Now, it's never 100% completely unrelated, because even if you choose an unrelated profession, the thinking that a single profession demands has a psychological influence on the other things too. So for example, let's say you are a doctor and you are good at fashion designing as a hobby, but you're professionally learned it and you're pretty good at it. Why not? If you're a civil engineer, and you are a guitarist. And even though the two professions are completely unrelated, being good in a musical instrument exercises parts of your brain that indirectly has an impact on how you think and excel at being a civil engineer. Even if there's not an intellectual crossover between the two domains, just being a guitarist probably reduces stress and makes you relaxed. So there's a lot of benefits, irrespective of whether the two professions you choose are related or not, in being a dualist. So let's talk a little bit about what are the pros and cons of being a dualist. First, just like being a specialist, the benefit of being a dualist is that you get focus. It's bifocal. You have two focus areas, but still you have two narrow lanes that you can focus and go deeper on. The second benefit of being a dualist, and it's one of the biggest benefit I would call out, if in case there's some kind of problem in your job, in your profession, or there's some kind of disruption in your primary professional area, then you have a fallback, you have a backup. If you are a dualist, you can switch from one to another and probably make your secondary as a primary. And lastly, this is more a value to a society than just for you. If you are professionally capable of two things and you bring that to fruition to your employer, to others in the society, you're actually a more valuable contributor to your country and to this world. Just imagine if every one of us doubled the things that we are capable of and positively apply that, how much value could we add to our economy, right? So you actually exponentially improve the impact that you bring to society. Now, there are some drawbacks when we talk about being a dualist. So the first con being a dualist means you're still specializing in two areas. So that demands a lot of your time and effort. And therefore, if you can't afford the time, or if you don't fully hone the capabilities required in one domain, then you're not truly a dualist. You didn't really master your skills required in two professional areas, and therefore it may not be that much beneficial to you. So it is quite demanding, and you should be able to afford the time. The second risk is that it's really hard to be. It's great if you excel in both. But sometimes you may not excel in one of them, and therefore that might that might make you a little bit imbalanced. A little bit of imbalance is okay, but little more than being average in one thing is not really being a dualist. So therefore, you might not be able to preempt that in advance. And therefore, it might be waste of effort if you go through halfway and then decide to do something else. And then lastly, just based on demands of life, you may not be able to practice what you've learned in both the professions. Some people have two jobs. Some people have a job and even practice the secondary skill as a hobby, but others may not. So in that case, if you're not able to practice your secondary profession, then you lose being good at it over time, and it's hard to. You can still catch up if you focus time and effort, but then it's a continuous battle between practicing and learning, and therefore that's something that can be challenging at times. But all those three cons aside, being a dualist is, like I said, is a happy medium between a specialist and a super generalist. So if you have to be a dualist, here's a checklist of things that you can consider. Just as we discussed in the specialist, you see if you are good in one, if not both the domains. If you perceive that I can be pretty good at being a lawyer as well as a graphics designer, it may or may not be complementary as we spoke about, but if you think you'll be good at both, give it a shot. Be good at both. If you think you'll be a great lawyer and graphics designer is just a curiosity, that's still fine. But if you choose two professional domains and you're not sure that you'd be good in either of them, then probably being a dualist is not the best way to go, because then you're dividing your efforts and then you risk not excelling in either one of them. So first thing, just make sure you excel in one, if not both. You have a perception that you would excel in one, if not both the areas. The second thing is make sure you like both or at least one of the two. The other one can be a curiosity. You persevere a lot more if you love what you're doing. And finally, make sure you're able to afford the time to learn, and possibly afford the time to practice it professionally as well. So if you're able to do all these three, then probably being a dualist is the right thing for you.